Obviously, you are not up north.
Nope.
Where exactly can we find you these days?
We are in Cape Coral, Florida.
Which is about 45, 50 minutes south of me. Smart decision to get out of the cold confines of Chicago. What made you decide to move south?
Ironically, a couple of years ago when I was turning 60, the mortgage company I was working with at the time said, "You're turning 60. You got to work remote. How you feel about that?" And I said, "If you fools are all right with me working from Florida, I'm all in." So off we went. Good timing.
Right. So let's start with the important stuff, the family. Lovely wife, Jennifer, 3 kids, Maddie,
Yep.
Peyton, and Tanner.
You got them.
How are they doing?
They're doing great. Loving life down here. Peyton and Tanner are down here with us. Maddie lives in Southern California. She's vice president of a private equity firm. Peyton works for a wholesale lender on their national correspondence team. Tanner's back in school down here at Florida Gulf Coast coming up and getting a software degree.
So is he have any opportunity to go catch Coach Chambers stomping the sidelines at all?
Not yet. I didn't even know he was down here till about a month ago. So
yeah. Well,
I gotta run over.
I'm gonna get down to see a game, so I'll give you a heads up. Maybe we can go check it out together.
Let's do it. I'll go over there with you. Absolutely, let's do it.
So what was it like? You're 2/3 of a girl dad. What was that like?
It was different, that's for sure.
Sports specifically.
So volleyball. So I never really. Well, none of them gravitated to basketball. They did a little soccer, and then when they got a little older, volleyball kind of popped up, and they ended up both playing in college. And Maddie played at University of Cincinnati. Peyton played at University of North Alabama, and then did great. Took advantage of it. Peyton actually went on to be an assistant coach down at Southern Miss for a couple of years, and then decided that wasn't the lifestyle for her. And popped out. So.
Yeah, that coaching, man, it's tough. You got to be special to want to do that. So there's a rumor, and I think the statute of limitation has run out on it, so you can come clean on this. There's a rumor that you may have been out there on the club circuit imitating, at best, Penn State volleyball, but maybe at worst, Russ Rose, just so they thought that you were out there recruiting. Is there any truth to that? I may have some spies that have given me some inside information.
Maybe a couple of good words, right? But showed a couple of pictures of me in my short shorts from 81, 82, 83, and that's what Penn State was all about, right?
Yes, sir. So before Penn State, you're at Bennett Academy in Lombard, Illinois. That's directly west of the city, is that right?
Yeah, so I grew up in Lombard. Bennett Academy was in Lisle, which is right next to Naperville, which is kind of the big suburban town. So, Catholic college prep high school, great basketball tradition now. I mean, they put out, I can't tell you how many kids have gone on to play D1, Now the most noteworthy one is Frank Kaminsky, who was over at Wisconsin. And, and so he was, a couple of years after our.
He was a beast.
He was in college, yeah. He really was.
Yeah. So how did Penn State? Who was recruiting you? Because you're Dick Harder's years, 79, 83, right?
Yeah. So they how they got on my radar really was kind of an outlier. Dick Stewart was the assistant. He was, I don't know how he got to so many games, but they really pushed it hard. They were trying to get some Midwest guys. So Richie Fetter was down from Springfield, myself, and they were really trying to get at least something going in the Midwest. They pushed hard. I honestly was going to Indiana to play for Bobby, and just wasn't going to commit until after the season ended. And then another guy committed ahead of me, Steve Bushy, who was the other guy he was recruiting. And so I just waited too long. Listen, everything turned out great, but so then Penn State and Purdue were the other two final choices. And I just like the idea of being able to play right away.
Yeah. I definitely feel you on that. So as far as that recruiting were on your official visit, obviously you made one. And what was your impression? Was that what closed the deal?
Well, it opened my eyes. It didn't close the deal, you know what I mean? Because the following week I went down to Indiana, right? But just coming from the Midwest, Chicago flatland, coming into State College, flying in from, on the puddle jumper from Pittsburgh, homecoming. I remember vividly, homecoming weekend, everything was orange and yellow, and everything was turning. It was 75, 80 degrees, Indian summer, homecoming, right? Clydesdale pulling, it was just this kind of, perfect college setting, right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And the hype around there was, Harder's first year was, when they were recruiting me and they were turning the program and, putting resources behind it and trying to make this push. And, it was going pretty good, right? I mean, we had some good teams. We just had too many injuries.
Yeah, let's dig deeper on that. Didn't you have Bukowski was like what 2 years before you? Or?
Frank was 2 years older. Really our probably, I wouldn't say it was our best. I think our best team was when I was a senior and Richie and Tommy McCluskey, we were seniors. But Frank's senior year and my sophomore year, we had a nice team. We just didn't really have a point guard. Mike Edelman was the shooter. Richie Fetter, who was really a small forward, had to play point guard. Tough. He was fine offensively, but it's tough for Long Richie to guard. Syracuse and Pitt point guards. It was an interesting. It was a tough position to put him into. So we just, we couldn't get over the hump, and then there were some issues between Harder and Frank and some other stuff. Everybody's heard the stories about Harder and
well, it's interesting. You brought up so many things I'm going to try to remember to ask you about. But number one, some of the upperclassmen, or actually our grad assistant, my freshman year was Jimmy Forgin, and he played for Harder. So he had a bunch of Harder stories. But I ended up meeting Dick way after college at a wedding, and he couldn't have been nicer, which I get because, any Division I coach, he's going to be different off the court than he is on the court. But I heard it was definitely trying. But you had winning seasons all 4 years.
All four.
Yeah. So what injuries were happening, were you dealing with?
Really, senior year, we started out of the gate. I mean, we blew out Maryland at Maryland. They were ranked. Then we, the typical early games, right? Some of the easy
non-conference, because you're the first. You were part of the first team that was when we got in Atlanta 10. Junior year, I guess, right?
Yeah. So and then Alabama came in, and they were ranked like 7th or 8th, and Tommy McCluskey tore his ACL in that game, and that was the first big injury, right? And they didn't know at the time what it was, and they're trying to make him back, it was he got on the court for a half a game, in the winter at the Christmas tournament. He couldn't even run.
Oh man, that's too bad.
So that hurt us. Dave Griffin stepped in great, and had a really nice season. And then Richie had a stress fracture in his foot not long after that. And you know how that is, those stress fractures just,
right.
And he came back late in the season, and then the other big deal was we had a freshman guard named Alex Agudio.
Yes.
Who could outright play, and he just walked off the team probably first week of February, and just gone. Just
which
out
happens.
Of school. Yeah. But
I heard he could ball. Yeah, Jimmy used to talk about him, and I think with a lot of people, I mean, it happens obviously a lot more now, but it's always been every season there was like one or two guys, whether it was homesick or a girlfriend or whatever, you lose guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and that late in the season it was tough. He was starting, he was playing, he was good. I mean, he could handle it. Defense was a little suspect, but he was a freshman, right? So it's okay.
Wasn't he? He was a city guy too, wasn't he?
He was from, I don't know, Bronx or something,
right? Yeah.
Hispanic, kind of, yeah.
But you guys, that's 79. Your freshman year, I think was. You did make the NIT, right?
Yeah. Well, the story behind that one. This kind of and all the players, as far as the coaches are all gone, right? They've all passed on, right? Stewart, Harder. So we come out of the gates. I'm starting. The team was horrible the year before. It was just a kind of patched together team. So we lose to Syracuse. They're ranked top 10, Roosevelt, Bowie, Louis Orr, they had a team, right?
Right.
And they come and spank us, right, at Rec Hall. And the next practice, coaches came out with lather coming out of their mouths. And Dick Stewart gets in my face and says, "You give me diarrhea." And I said to myself, what is going on here? And it was just, it was quite a difference. Obviously, from recruiting to that point. So I made the move. I was transferring, and nobody really knows it, but I went into the offices the following, I don't know, week, said I'm done. And they were a little bit in shock because I'm starting, right? And everything, you know. And needless to say, they backed off. They talked me into staying for the year. They backed off, and we go on a run. And we ended up like, I think we were 17-9 or 18-9. We made the NIT, and we ended up 18-10, I think. We lost to UAB down there, but still, it was nice. And we had, the only guy we lost from the team that was Tom Wilkinson.
I love that dude. Oh man, what a great guy.
Great dude, right? And everybody was back, and then we had Dickie Muma and Brian Dean and Jimmy and Dave Griffin coming in. So we had they had really good back-to-back recruiting classes.
Right. Well, when you went to say did you go to the coaches or did you go to the athletic director? Was it Joe or was it Jim?
I just went right to the coaches. I didn't go to anybody else. I went and told them. I was like, this. I mean, I know, nobody really knew who Harder was, at least from the Midwest, right? I mean, the Philly people knew him, and then obviously out at University of Oregon, he had, but there was no internet. We didn't know what the hell we were getting into, right? So,
right.
But it was just it was just like kind of the wheels were falling off early in that freshman year, and they backed off. I stayed, and listen, we had 3 good years. Junior year was a little bit of a struggle after Frank was gone because we didn't really have a center. Harder didn't believe in Dickie Muma, 100%, to play center the whole time. So I ended up kind of having to slide into that role. Dickie played a lot more forward. So we were just kind of, trying to figure things out, and we had freshman guards, Craig Collins and Dwight Gibson, good players, but they were freshmen. So when we played, we were still playing those really tough independent schedules.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What I remember Jimmy telling me a story. I'm guessing you were on the team when this happened. There was one practice.
Which one?
There was one practice where there was no basketballs rolled out. You had to sit in a chair in your position and think about.
Yeah. We lost to Penn at the Palestra. Came back, no tape. We're like, all right, no tape. We'll go out on the floor. There's all the chairs set up in all the positions, and everybody goes sit, and they called every player in one by one, and just tore everybody. And I go in there. I had, I don't know, I had a double, 20 and 15 or something like that. I'm sitting there going, what the hell are they gonna get on me about, right?
Yeah. Oh, right.
So
but everybody's got to get it because you're a team.
Yeah, and we got it, and then it was just the craziest. It was just a mental game at that point.
Right. Which a lot of people may know, but sometimes they don't know, like the behind the scenes, and that's when it's not fun. We all had those practices where the ball wasn't rolled out, and they're testing you.
Well, then the senior year, I don't know if Jimmy told you about the game senior year, and this might be the one that kind of kept Harder from getting re-signed because his 5-year contract was up. We lost to UMass. Now we're in the Atlantic 10. We played UMass. We were limping home, right?
Right.
We were 16-5. I think it was 16-5. We had 6-7 games at home. I'm sorry, left in the season. 5 or 6 of them at home, and we went 1-6, I think, or 2-5. It was Goody was gone, Tommy's gone, Richie's trying to come back. I think at one point we had 9 or 10 guys that were even dressing, right? So anyway, we played crappy against UMass, and it was a turnaround deal, right? So we go, then we play UMass up there 2 days later, and we lost by like 15. Just a bad game. Next practice,
cage, right? You're played in a cage.
Yeah. Next practice, we come out, no basketball, no chairs, and we went for an hour. And he brought a ball out with about, it was probably 10 minutes left. He stood at half court and rolled it to the, center jump. and we were lined up and under each basket and mall ball, right?
Oh, right. You had to get it. Whoever
had to get it and then go 1-on-1, and there were no fouls. I didn't even know if there was dribbling. All right. So we get through that. Then we had to do 110 up downs, grass drills at the end of this. And we've been running. I mean, nobody had anything left. So there were either 2 or 3 guys that actually finished the 110. There were a couple guys, Matt Moser, who was a freshman at the time, cracked his chin on the floor and had to go for stitches, and then it was a mess. And I remember seeing Mr. Tarman up in I think it was Mr. Tarman and curls up there looking through. And I just always thought to myself, boy, did they just watch this and kind of wonder what the heck is going on in there?
Oh, yeah.
But that was to me just the most, I mean, as a player, I didn't see what it was accomplishing, right? But maybe as a coach with 5 or 6 games left, it was crazy. I mean, I know we all went through something with, no matter who the coach was, but that was pretty extreme stuff. It was wild,
man. So, but when people, because I've been around the program so long, and people they ask about you, and you're mentioned in the same breath as the Calvin Booths and John Amaechi's and even Mike Watkins. You average a double. So from what I saw, and then I also had the opportunity to play at least in one alumni game with you, and I remember thinking, man, if we had this guy in the paint when we were playing, because my year was like Hovass and Ed Fogel and Blake. Yeah. I mean, you and Ed would have raised some hell together if you're out there.
Bruce's system was perfect for me.
Yes.
A lot of post action, right? A lot of wraparound passes. Sealing. I was just really good at getting guys on my hip or my behind, and I was strong. I was just stronger than everybody on the floor.
Yeah, no question.
And I used it, right? I mean, and I just kind of used what I had. But going back to when we were playing, we just didn't have an outside threat senior year. When Tommy and Richie were gone, that was it. True, right. Those guys could stroke it from through. I think that might have been the first year of the 3. And so I would, tell people they were double teaming me. I had no business being double teamed.
You're being a little modest, but you were the go-to guy. You were the consistent, and if it went in the paint, you're going to get your bucket. So they had to, that had to suck.
But it would have been nice for everybody if those guys didn't get hurt, because
right.
That would have. I really think it would have changed things, and could have changed everything, right? I mean, God, if we would have won 20 games, Harder might have still been there, and Bruce never comes to Penn State, right? So
right. So when did you get to first meet Coach Parkhill? Obviously you'd left, right?
So a little backstory there. After, when Harder was not re-signed, and then they were starting the coaching search, they asked me to be on the search committee.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it was a nice honor, right? And we interviewed some guys. Patino was in there begging for the job, and really, young guy. We had just played them. He was, I think, at Northeastern, I want to say, or Boston U, one of those two, and he was an intense guy, but young, right? Like Bruce.
Didn't fit State College though.
Didn't, I kind of sensed it, and I was like, God, this guy's he's an up and comer, right? Then Bruce comes in, and Bruce was just smooth, and just great personality, understood Penn State, coming from State College, right? Had the pedigree, everything they're looking for, great success at William and Mary. And I kind of was telling it, a lot of people like Patino, and I was like, I think this is the guy right now after this 5 years with Harder, and people in the town didn't really care for the way, the basketball program was kind of portrayed, as what it was. Right. And so that's when I met Bruce, and we kind of forged a good friendship, even though I never played for him, so. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, I would have loved 1 year with him.
Oh man! So we can agree that I was like 3 years too late, and you were maybe 3 years too early. Because that motion offense that he had was just. I mean, we used to chop, and he was smart enough to know that we didn't have the talent at first to do a lot of fancy things. So it was really all about setting screens, coming off the screens, being in the right position, and he was a stickler about it. And we didn't get it immediately, but we figured that out, that was our advantage. And
Right. Yeah, those first couple of years, I mean, the cupboard was bare, right? I mean, when Harder was gone, there was nothing coming in, right? I mean,
a lot of guys left. Like we didn't even have a senior class my freshman year.
Is that right?
Yeah, we didn't have a senior class. Our upperclassmen were the juniors, which is like Carl Schrabbis, Kip DeWitt, Paul Murphy, Billy Pollock.
So those were all after, right? So
yeah. They were like Coach Parkhill's first recruits.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that was your senior. Okay, yeah. So Dwight and Craig Collins would have been gone the year before you got there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Craig was still around because he was like trying out for the Sixers, and because he had a pretty good senior year. But yeah. And how about playing in Rec Hall? Like, tell me about how, that.
Well, when people showed up, it was great, right? That was the battle back then. Great atmosphere when it was filled. I mean, it was raucous and loud, and but it just rarely, we had, I remember playing in games 2,000 people, 2,500 people.
My freshman year, definitely not as much my sophomore year, but my freshman year, there were games where they didn't even pull out the seats on the end zones underneath behind the baskets.
Yeah, I believe.
And I think they'd won only 5 games the year before we got there. So
yeah. It was a rough little run there after
right.
my senior year. I know that because those guys were, it was a struggle. But Bruce really did a great job. I mean, he really got that thing going.
Yeah. It was fun to be a part of, and it was fun to watch the guys that were younger than me. Really, they never lost. They won 20 games every year. The guys that were freshmen when we were seniors.
Yeah, they had some players. Yeah, it was fun to watch. I was overseas till like '88, so probably caught a couple. Those guys, what, junior and senior years probably when I was back, and it was fun. It was fun watching that. I went, like you said, I went to a couple of alumni games early on, and then getting there from Chicago sometimes in the middle of the winter.
Easy. Oh yeah, and then you're raising kids. So you after your senior year, the NBA draft was a little bit different. They had a ton of rounds then, but you were drafted by the Bulls, right, or the Knicks, and then
the Knicks late. I mean, they were talking, 3rd, 4th round, something like that. Which just based on who I played against and how I did it, it's probably I slotted in there, but whatever. I didn't go to the 8th round, which didn't really matter. You weren't, what it affected? How much money you were going to get in Europe. And then ironically, I go to free agent camp, I get cut, but prior to that, after the season, Mr. Tarman calls me, the secretary calls me, hey, listen, they want to talk, a football coach wants to talk to you about maybe a football career. And I was like, I'm going to the league. So he goes, well, come on in and talk. So I get on the phone with Bill Parcells.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, Mike, I really think you'd be a hell of a tight end. And I was like, oh, geez, coach, I really appreciate that, but I'm going to the league. And he goes, I've talked to Coach Paterno. I've talked to people down there. I think, you've got all the tools. I can make you into a hell of a tight end. I said, listen, I've never even played peewee football, but I appreciate.
You didn't play in high school. I didn't know that. I thought maybe you played in high school.
My mom would not let sign the paper. I was the Great White Hope in Chicago, man. Come on, look at that.
I'm sure.
6'8", 240 pounds in high school in 1979. That was
my goodness. Heck yeah. But mom was smart. Anyway, looking back, I mean,
I don't know. Maybe not. So, but then I was going to Spain after, and when the Knicks cut me early right away because there was some mental things on my end, as personal stuff. So I called my agent and said, I'm not going. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, I can't go. My head's not right. He goes, what do you mean? So I don't go. And then I go and try out with the USFL Philadelphia Stars. Jim Moore was the head coach. I said, well, may as well try it.
Yeah.
So I bulk up to 273 pounds, catch every ball that Chuck Fusina's throwing. Couldn't block my shadow. Right? Didn't know anything about X's and O's in football other than watching it. They cut me after about 2.5 weeks. I meet with Moore. He goes, you need to go to the NFL. He goes, they can train you. I can't train you. I don't have time. So
wow.
No love. So anyway, I said, Coach, I'm going to play in Europe. I dropped 20, went over to France, and then went over to Japan for 3 years. So I was in Japan before those two big knuckleheads were over.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Hovass will try to take the title as the trailblazer, but you were truly the trailblazer going over and playing in Tokyo. And just just that experience, it sounded very similar to Tom, just fish out of water, having to work for the company that you're playing for.
Right, right.
Weren't a lot of Americans, right?
There were. So when I was there, so it was from 85 to 88, not a lot, maybe I want to say 10 or 12. All the players were from big schools, right? Kentucky had 4 or 5 guys over there. Notre Dame had a couple guys. UCLA had a couple guys. So the Japanese loved all the big name school guys, right?
Right.
And we almost all lived in Tokyo, as opposed to Europe. You're spread out all over the place.
Right, right.
So it was great.
Yeah, I was going to ask you the experience. What do you, besides you're having fun in your 20s in a foreign country and getting paid for it? What were some of the takeaways from that?
A couple of things growing up, right? In a different level than college and kind of, really having to, the basketball part of it was kind of easy, right? Other than when you played against the other American, right? It was just a battle in the game. But, practices, you ran a lot. The Japanese like to run a lot, and they never got tired. I'm sucking, double gas pipes trying to keep up with dudes.
Lots of practices too, right?
Lots of practices. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of drinking after the practices, but lots of practices. And then just experiencing the different culture, right? And kind of, whether it was in France that first year and living there in the middle of the Alps and, just a whole different thing with there. And then going to Japan and living in Tokyo, right? One of the biggest cities in the world. Yeah. People from all over the world, right? It was the hub of Asia at the time, and just meeting all these great people and just learning how to talk about different things, not just basketball, just learning how to network and do stuff. And it was a great experience.
How good did your Japanese get?
Yeah, it was about this good. Yeah, it was too easy. It was too easy to get away with just speaking English, And I took some classes. I could string together some phrases. I never got the Pillow Dictionary, so I didn't pick it up like
right.
that I committed to it like I should have, as far as taking, because they provided classes and all that stuff for you. Just I don't know, whatever the reasons were.
Yeah, well, I mean, it took Tom a while to get it down, and he had to be. I mean, he played over there for I think it was 11 or 12 years.
Oh yeah, those guys. Yeah. I know that.
And Fogel followed him over there. They were teammates for a little bit, but I regret never getting over there to watch them play. But by that time the league was starting to really pick up.
Yeah. I actually would have still been there when they got there. I just had to make a decision as far as what I wanted to do in life, and did I want to be played on 35, right? Would have been okay, but I always had a goal of getting down to one of the exchanges in Chicago and give it a shot at being a trader. And I figured, it's turning 28. I probably needed to make a move. So I just decided to, let them know I'm done.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you, the transition. So you started in the real world 9 to 5 on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, correct?
I did, yeah. So I got myself down there. I had bought a house, when I was still playing. I had a mortgage, I had a car payment, and then I'm done playing. And I'm making $300 a week as a clerk down at the exchange at 28 years old going, boy, I don't know, is this a good idea or not, And then,
right.
But the guy another guy that started a few players, a couple guys who played at DePaul, guy who played at Kentucky. I ran into these guys and we, had a quick conversation, and the guy that started them off was a little Jewish guy from Kansas City who always thought basketball players made the best traders because of quick thinking and being able to deal with losses and wins and blah. And it was true.
Probably.
Yeah. And so when another guy comes over to the pit I was working and says, hey, Bob wants to talk to you. So I go over and meet with him. He offers me a job. He goes, how much do you need? I said, I need $300 a week just to make my payments. He goes, I can't give you that. I said, well, then I can't work for you.
Right.
So he buckled and gave me the 300. And that was St. Patrick's Day I started. And 3 months later, I was in the pits trading, which is ridiculously fast.
I was going to say almost unheard of at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, and picked it up pretty quick. Had a nice start and real consistent. Kind of followed my basketball. This is the way I played. I was there every day. did my thing, tried to had certain goals as far as what kind of income. I worked for myself, really, so it was my money.
Right.
He backed me, but so it turned out great. And then I got my youngest brother, Chris, and he's 7 years younger than me, and he just tore it up. He was a great trader.
So were you a finance major at Penn State?
No, ironically, marketing and business. Yeah. So, which was probably more educated than 75% of the traders in the world, because most floor traders were guys who were kind of rough and tumble, smart on their feet, could,
car salesman almost.
Well, not car salesman, because you're trading your own money, right? So you're not trying to get somebody to give you something. You're just in there, risk takers, just pure risk takers. So some guys didn't care about losing money, and they lost money.
Right.
And they were good, and they come back. And so it was a crazy world. I remember the first day I walked on the floor, the smell and the noise and everything was overwhelming. And it was just the greatest 20 years of my life. Business life, I should say. I'm not going to say.
Right. So how long were you on the floor until you actually moved up into the C-suites?
Well, I was on the floor for 18 years until 07, 08. And then technology was kind of kicking the business to the screens. So the floors were losing the order flows. So it was getting harder and harder to make money. When I went on the screen for 2 years, and we were trying to compete with, software engineers from MIT that, golden, you couldn't do it, right? We're just trying to beat them with a mouse and with our knowledge, and it didn't translate to the screen. So end of 09, I quit. It was just, I was going nowhere. I'd taken it on the chin financially in 08 with some of my investments. So, you move on, right? And I got into the mortgage space over at Quicken Loans in 2012 and did that for 10 years till last June. And so now the other side of that is my brother and I have been running a software company that we started 20 some years ago in data security, just too early, right? So we're getting some traction now because of what we do with that software.
You're with it's Kaleidoscope, right?
Kaleidoscope Secure Data Systems. Yeah. So we were preaching authentication, multi-factor authentication 25 years ago.
Obviously, you were way ahead of your time, but everybody's doing. I mean,
well, our partner Frank Inglis, the software engineer, incredibly brilliant guy, told us in 1998. He goes, "Mark my words, it's going to all be about authentication." I was like, "What the hell is that?" He goes, "Well, your encryption has to be beyond military grade, but it's going to be about who can see it, who has the access to see it, and who has seen it or tried to see it, right? So it's all ledger stuff."
So you had a head start. I mean, you had years head start on everybody in the business.
But unfortunately, that didn't really, probably till 3 or 4 years ago when you started seeing Google and Microsoft start use these multi-factor deals, right?
Right.
We were doing that in basically 2000. And we're light years ahead of what they're all doing. So now it's, we've stuck with it, and my brother's been running it really solely. He retired, and we're getting some action now because the market kind of proved out itself, and we're still there. So we'll see what happens. So hopefully keep our fingers crossed that a couple good things happen, and
it seems like, because it's funny, I'm in the mortgage business still, but I also was doing some consulting for a company that essentially was STEM related, like doing training, doing essentially case studies to try to prepare students for the real world and all things cybersecurity, the Internet of Things. Because from what I was told, and that's what I was going to ask, is there still seems to be a shortage of talent compared to what the companies are needing coming out of college.
There's a huge void there. I mean, it's because, first of all, I bet a majority of the companies are still trying to look the other way because they don't have they don't want to spend the money. They're still hoping they don't get hit, right? And there's a lack of really talented people. I mean, there's guys coming out with, certificates for cybersecurity. Well, that doesn't do them anything, right? Oh, yeah, you can take a class. Do you really know what you're talking about? Maybe know how to set up a network, but what's behind your network? How are you securing that data? What if they bust your network? And a lot of guys have no idea how to do that and what to use. So they just kind of go standard, what's everybody else using, or what's the cheapest stuff. but there's a
Right.
definite lack of talent, of numbers. So, all these kids coming out. I mean, if I were coming out right now, I'd be all cybersecurity.
Yeah. Yeah.
The software, or gaming. One of the
Yeah,
two.
yeah, one of the two. Yeah, these kids, these 15-year-olds are making millions of dollars gaming or whatever.
Yeah.
So it seems, that seems to be, and the company, I thought it was a great idea because they have people from the companies, from the Fortune 500 companies, actually teaching the case studies to students, and anybody can sign up for it, and they learn from someone, and they are case studies from their company. So, and then instead of having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars recruiting on flights and rooms and for somebody you may not have, they're doing it like in universities, full classes. So these HR people get to essentially vet the students coming out of school for their company. So I think that's they kind of
cut down. They cut the runway, right? So you have an idea at least beforehand.
Yeah. And if both parties, the retention, it's more sticky too, because you kind of know the company, and the company knows the talent that they're hiring. So that's really cool. So do you keep? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say companies don't like to spend twice for the same guy, right? One guy comes in and quits after 2 or 3 years.
Yes, exactly. So do you keep in contact with any of your former teammates?
Yeah, Jim Forge and myself, Tommy. We've been doing when the pandemic started. We all did a big Zoom thing from basically from Brukowski's year, and even early on, Frank wasn't on him because nobody knew how to get a hold of him. But Mike, Craig Buffy, very successful guys, all the way through. Kind of, I'd say, probably 85. I don't know who maybe, but there was about a 5-year run. Anybody who was touched harder, I guess, right? So we all had that common thread. We could still complain and bitch about it. And we did. We laughed, and it was good to kind of see a lot of those guys, that I hadn't seen or talked to, and I mean, honest to God, over 30 some years, right? Brian Dean, I hadn't, he got on. It was great to see Brian, and honestly, Brian was purely one of the best talents to come into Penn State. I mean, the kid could just outright play.
No kidding. I don't think I've ever met him.
Brian he's from Harrisburg. He and Dickie Muma were the two big recruits, and Dave too, Griffin. But Brian could 6'5", 220 pounds, and didn't lift weights. I mean, he was just could play guard. He could go down in the paint and bang with me. And Carter could never get on the same page, and it was just a shame because I'm telling you, BA Brian could ball. I mean, it was, and that could have been a difference maker, right? But he just never really got the consistent time, and frustrated and whatever. But so BA, and then Griff's done really well. He's a lawyer, and Dickie's done. I mean, everybody did pretty well. From those years. That
did you play with Wally Choice?
I did play with Wally. Yeah, Wally was the sleeper, right? Wally came out of nowhere.
Great guy.
Wally,
oh man.
Wally was slippery smooth, man. He could play with that
lefty.
Left.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I've Craig is probably the one I've kept in contact with the most. Has done very well for himself, and he had that free throw shooting record forever.
Yeah.
Until JJ Redick. Well, make sure you tell Jim Forge and I'm looking for him, because I'd love to get him on here too. He was so influential for us as freshmen, having been through it. He was, he's our grad assistant.
He's a great dude.
In those dark days, I don't care who the coach is, you're gonna have, especially like preseason and just the leap. He and Mike Strahan were invaluable to us, kind of finding our way as freshmen.
Yeah.
So
no, dude.
Yeah, great dude. Yeah, please tell him I said hello, and tell him I'm looking. I might be able to actually reach out to him, because he was hilarious. Because he actually played. I think he played for Coach Parkhill too for at least a year or two, right?
1 year, yeah, because he was a year behind me. Yeah, so he did, and that was a tough year because there wasn't a whole lot. Like I said, there's nobody coming in, and I mean, I was every game, right? 110 in a row, and that's gone. And Richie, who basically started all 4 years when he wasn't hurt, So
Right.
there was a lot of minutes that had to get filled up and points that disappeared.
Yeah,
But
well, you're still like, I think you're one or two, right? And career rebounds like 912 behind Jesse,
three,
or
three.
three.
Watkins passed me up late in the season last year, so I had to relinquish number two.
But it was
So
there for a long time, my friend, and I don't think anybody's going to catch Jesse.
nobody's touching Jesse. That dude was just he was a man amongst boys and a freak on the floor and off the floor, right? I mean, God,
Unbelievable. I mean, to have the scoring record as long as he had it with no 3-point line
yeah,
is just
yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, and really being a post guy, right? I mean, he was kind of 6'5", 6'6",
Yeah.
just an athletic guy, football player, basketball player, super smart, right? Great. I mean,
Yeah. So do you get a chance to follow the guys now? Watch the game. I mean, you've always kind of been like, I know personally because we're friends, that you keep track. But have you been watching
I
it
do,
this year?
and I have been, yeah. So it's been fun to see. I mean, Coach Shrew is doing a great job, right? I mean, he's God. They play hard. They go after it. They score, which is fun to see. And he's got those kids believing in themselves, man. And that goes a long way.
No
And
question. No
I
question.
didn't see the game from Sunday, but I just love the fact that they spanked Michigan like that. That was
Yeah, they came out of the gates hot, and I think teams were kind of picking up on that. We weren't doing a lot of scoring in the paint, and then Hen showed up. He's one of our transfers, which I think coach has done brilliantly, is take advantage of the transfer portal. And he helped us a lot and kind of sparked us in that first half. So yeah. So they're
is he the big one with the beard that came?
Yeah, the big white guy beard, kind of, he wears a bandana.
Yeah, he's been at about 18 schools or something like that.
That's cool.
I'm kidding. I just that's good to see that somebody.
Yeah, it's working out well, and I don't know. Obviously, I don't know about the game like coaches do, but it's got to be an imperfect science when you're on that transfer portal. But it seems like the guys that he's picking up are just really contributing to the team. And if he can get going, we'll be it'll be hell to deal with us because we'll be much more balanced.
I agree, man. I mean, they're you can't focus on one guy on that team. There's a lot of guys they'll there's 3 or 4, well, 2 or 3 that'll torch you for 25 points, right?
Yeah, they have 4,000 point scores.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely been fun to watch, and I don't know if you had a chance. Were you on the alumni call with Coach Shrewsbury by any chance when we did that?
I didn't even know about it. So
I don't know how we missed you. I thought maybe you were just big timing us, but he did.
No, I don't know why I'm not on any database there. It's even when they built the Bryce Jordan Center, right, and they were selling the bricks or whatever. I never got a call.
Well, well, I know personally when I was on the staff that I was making sure that you were in the loop. I'm no longer involved, but this is kind of my way of staying involved. And I also think it's important for people to know that we continue to support the program and Coach Shrewsbury. And it's been fun. So the last thing I want to talk about is I know Penn State has the Coaches versus Cancer, which is one of the top 5 in the country. But you have a cool charity too, the Clubber Open that you've been doing for years. Talk about that.
Yeah. So this will be our 25th. So kind of a lot of these things start from something not good that happened, right? So 1999, actually coming up in a couple of weeks, the 4th of 5, it was my brother went in for back surgery and didn't come out. So a tough deal, obviously for all of us, very tight family. My mom raised 5 kids by herself. Dad left when we were all young, and so tough thing, right? And so we started kind of in his name a scholarship fund for kids who were going to college, but they had to come from single parent homes. So it was therapeutic for us, and we're trying to pass on. And we had a great network from all the guys at the exchange, and we came out of the gates. We were raising $100,000 a golf outing for probably 8 or 9 years, when things were still going really good on the floors. And, we were giving out, what were we giving out? About $60,000 a year in scholarships.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was great. So we're coming up on $1 million that we donated to kids. So to help them with their colleges. And, it's been a really great thing. A lot of these kids have gone on to do great things, in their lives. And, all we tell them when they come through is pay it forward. We don't expect you, we're not expecting you to write us a check. We're not expecting you to come back and support us. You're always welcome. And a lot of them have come back, but we just want you someday, if somebody needs some help, that if you're in the position to do it, you help them out.
I love that. So what's the date and what's the website?
So it's actually it's just clubberfund.org. So my brother's nickname was Clubber Lang. So
Mr. T character from Rocky.
Well, the backstory on Clubber on Jimmy, my brother, was 6'4", 300 and solid pounds, but could not throw the ball in the ocean if he was standing in it. but could pick up on the front end of a car. Just a freak, size
that
18,
Midwest strong.
Size 18 shoe. His hands were like this to mine. It was just a goofy body and just no athletic talent. So one of my buddies, just when the Rocky came out that year, and Clubber Lang just fit him, and it stuck forever, and then,
I love it.
Yeah. So, so it's www.clubberfund.org. We do a big raffle and stuff. So you can buy, if somebody wants to, buy some tickets online, raffle tickets, we make sure it's all done. There's some auction stuff too. And it's been a great thing. People love coming out. Now we used to have 300 golfers when it was, in its first 10 years, and that we backed it down to 144 golfers, and then another 100 people come for the dinner, the banquet, and do all that stuff. So a lot of fun, a lot of work. My brother Chris does most of the heavy lifting now. But it's really been, a labor of love, and like 24 years later, it's still therapeutic for us. So
that's awesome.
Everybody,
that's awesome.
Most people have lost somebody in their lives, right? But when you're young like that, it was a kick in the bones.
But to have an event like that, it keeps the memory alive and gets everybody together.
And for 24 or 25 years, this is our 25th. Event. That's almost unheard of, and family, type of cheer. And we just, whatever money comes in goes out. Nobody gets a paycheck, so it's been really good.
Well, congratulations on that, and I appreciate the minutes, man. And I have to confess, I did reach out to Peyton to get some insight on the whole the imposter coach.
There was back when Hillary Sexton, remember Hillary?
She played for Russ. Yep.
Yeah. So Hillary's from out here, and her dad traded with me on the floor for years. One of my best friends, and
then Brianna too, right?
Brianna and Peyton were best friends. So
okay. Yeah,
Brianna always wanted to go to Penn State, and she just loved it, and she got married to a Penn Stater this summer up in Rockford, outside Chicago, and a lot of Penn State volleyball players at that place, at that wedding, man. Wow.
Oh, I bet. So would Russ kind of help reach out to you and say, hey, I'm trying to recruit this kid? And
no, ironically, I always stayed in touch with Russ, because Russ is a Chicago guy, right? So, when I got up there, he found me one day after practice, and hey, man, he just got there. He came from Nebraska. It was his first year, so kind of friendly. And then I dated a girl on the team for a couple of years, and then after, I stay in contact with them, and then whenever they were playing at Northwestern, sometimes I'd go up to Wisconsin and just kind of watch. I didn't have anything other than just to go say hi to them and get a free T-shirt.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people you always hear about his team and what they say, what he's meant to them, but guys like me who you can't really have that kind of relationship with your coach. So Russ was like the older brother where I could go and have these great conversations with him. And real, because Russ, he keeps it real.
Right.
So I'm sure you had great conversations with him when you were the player, but there's so many athletes on that campus that owe a lot to Russ too, just for being a good sounding board.
A good listener, and it just kind of give you no sugarcoating, right? Just, hey, man,
That's so true. But it was so needed. It's so needed. Yeah.
Good dude. Good dude.
Yeah, he was one of the best. Well, I appreciate the time. Give the family my best. And seriously, when I catch a game, I'll give you a heads up.
Yeah,
and love to roll over there with you.
Yeah, let's get together. Yeah, what town are you in up there?
I'm in St. Petersburg.
Oh, you're in St. Pete. Okay, so perfect. Yeah, maybe we can meet in Sarasota or something, and we'll do some lunch.
I was just there too. So yeah, I promise I will make that happen because it's been too long since we've gotten together.